Well, hello and welcome to reading the Greek New Testament. And I'm going to just read through the Paul's epistle to the Philippians. As usual with these readings, there's nothing particularly original in anything I say. I'm just going to go through the text and translate and explain some of the Greek with a few bits and pieces of other information as well. But you need, if you're going to study the book carefully, of course you'll need to have a commentary. So just a word about this. This is generally regarded, I think, universally as a work of Paul. There's no doubt about authorship. The place and circumstance of writing are disputed, and of course that affects the dating. The traditional view is that it was written from Rome when Paul was there in chains and under arrest. That would place the date about 62 AD. Other scholars think that he was in prison in Ephesus, which was back in 54 to 55, or perhaps he was in prison many places, in Caesarea, 57 to 59. Another recent suggestion has been that he was in Rome, but it was at a later period. Again, I'll leave you to read the commentaries on issues such as this. Philippi was named by Philip of Macedon. It's inland from the seaport of Neapolis, and it was later made a Roman colony and appears to have been split between Greek and Roman citizens. The majority view is the letter is a unity. Others claim that it's a pastiche of three different letters, but it seems to have enough unity in it to be one letter. There are three main aims for Paul writing it. He wants to thank them for the recent gift that was brought by Epaphroditus. He wants to warn them against false teachers, and he wants to encourage them to live in unity. So as usual with the structure, he begins with the salutation in verses 1 and 2. So he says, Paulos kai Timotheos douloi Christou Iesu pasin tois hagiois en Christo Iesu tois usin en Philippois sun episkopois kai diakonois charisoumin kai rene apathiou patros hemon kai kuriou Iesu Christou. So Paulos, Paul, and Timothy. This, of course, is the famous Timothy that was born in Lystra. He had a Jewish mother and a Greek father. His mother became Christian, and Paul met him during his second missionary journey. He became, along with Silas, Paul's travelling companion, and Paul later had him circumcised. So Paul and Timothy, douloi, well, servants, devotees, Christou Iesu, of the Messiah Jesus, to all the saints in Christ Jesus, to the ones being, this is a dative plural from the verb to be, participle from the verb to be, so on, usa, on, and this is the dative plural, usin. So to those being in Philippi, along with the episkopois, well, it's hard to know exactly how to translate this word, possibly something like, well, to use the modern term, it's where we get our word bishops from. It means overseers, and diakonos, we get our word deacon from that, and servants. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Just a couple of points here. Note that Paul interchanges the two names. Sometimes you get Christou Iesu, sometimes Iesu Christou. The Christou Iesu appears to be the more common in Paul, and this order is in fact almost peculiar to Paul. In the epistle it occurs 13 times, with one possible exception. We get the other way around, Iesu Christou 7 times, and just the Christ root alone without Jesus occurs 16 times, again with one possible exception, and Jesus appears once. We note also that Paul doesn't use his usual title of apostolos. He here uses this doulos, which is probably a Hebrew expression, the Heber a servant. Doulos we translated as slave, but it has more the sense of devotee in the New Testament, and it's a Hebraic expression. It's used in the Septuagint to refer to the Old Testament prophets. Paul uses it elsewhere, of course. The word episkopos, it's connected with skeptomai, to look at something, and epi, over, so it's an overseer, one who keeps an eye on what's going on. Our word bishop is a corruption of this word. The exact nature of the office is debatable, and it may have been different in different places. It may be equivalent to something like the other term presbyteros. The word does occur in the Septuagint, and it's only used 3 times in the New Testament, elsewhere in 1 Timothy and then in Titus. Diakonos simply means servants. It later comes to mean a deacon. It comes to be an office in the church. Not clear exactly what this is at this point. And so that is the salutation, the greeting to the Philippians. And it's the usual standard language you see in these salutations. After the salutation in Paul's letters, you get the thanksgiving. This happens in all of Paul's letters except Galatians. So he says here, Eucharisto to theo mu epipase, te menea humon, pan toti en pase diese mu, hupapanton humon, metakaras, ten deesin poi umenos. Epite koinonia humon es to euangelion apotes protes hemeras acri tu nun pepoithos auto tuto hoti ho en examenos en huminergon agathon epitelese acri hemeras Jesu Christu. And then, even then, we only get a semicolon. So Paul's, of course, is known for his very long and quite rambling sentences. So Eucharisto, from Eucharistio, I give thanks to my God. Epipase te menea. Menemea connected with verb mimnesco and various other verbs. You get menemeion, place of remembrance, hence a tomb. Mnemea simply means a remembrance. So every time I remember you is the meaning of it. So I give thanks to my God at every remembrance of you, that is, every time I think of you. Pan toti en passe diese mu. Pan toti, pan plus toti, always. In each diese, this is a dative from deasis. Deomai is one of the verbs for asking or requesting. This is the abstract noun, deasis. It's a third declension feminine noun. So it means a request or petition. It's a little bit more specific than proseuche, just a general word for prayer. So always in every petition of me, on behalf of all of you. Now we get a participle here, poiumenos, middle from poio, making ta diesin, there's the same noun again in the accusative, making the request metakaras, with joy, from genitive from kara, first declension, alpha pure feminine noun. Epi te koinonia humon es to euangelion apotes protes. So I give thanks. Now, this is all slightly parenthetical. I give thanks at, perhaps because of, it depends on the Eucharistio, at the koinonia, at your fellowship. Koinos means common, and koinonia becomes an abstract noun, meaning those things that we have in common, perhaps, and hence fellowship becomes an abstract sense of fellowship. So at your fellowship, with regard to the gospel, as to euangelion, apotes protes, from the first day, acri tu nun, up until now. This is Paul likes this expression, acritu nun. It also occurs in Romans 8:22. It's a Pauline expression. This verse 6 here is parenthetical. It really breaks the train of thought between verses 5 and 7. But this is typical of what Paul does. He goes off on tangents all the time, and then you have to try and pick up the grammar and the sense as you go. Pepoithos, having confidence in. So pepoitha is a word with perfect in meaning, perfect in form, present in meaning. Pepoitha, I trust. This is just the participle here, the perfect participle. From you get cos, quia, cos, and the kappa disappears here before the theta. It is connected ultimately with patho, but it's a fossilized word, fossilized usage. So pepoitha, I trust in. Originally connected with patho, but the form was an earlier form, and it's just become fossilized. So trusting auto tuto, again a funny expression, in this very thing. It's a Pauline expression. You'll only see it in the New Testament again in 1 Peter. It has a certain strength about it, so it's trusting in this very thing. Hoti, that. Ho enaxamenos, this is from an aorist middle participle from en archimai. It means to, well, here it's just translate having begun, inaugurated. It does have religious overtones in classical Greek. It's a specifically religious word. It's used at the beginning of a religious ceremony. So if the priest is about to begin some particular ceremony, this is the verb that's used. It occurs, for example, in Euripides' Iphigenia in Taurus in line 435. The meaning is probably much weakened here by this stage, but there will still be a resonance of some religious overtone here. So the one having begun in you, agathon ergon, a good work, epitelese, future, it's that teleo, the epsilon doesn't lengthen, that he will bring it to completion, acrihemeras, literally until the day of the Messiah Jesus. You get similar expressions in Luke, but it's a classical expression. You'll see this also in Demosthenes in classical Greek. So until the day of Christ Jesus. Now, verse 7, Kathos esti dikaion emoi tuto phronan hupapanton humon, dia to ekain me en te kardia humas, en tetois desmois mu kai en te apologia kai bebiose tu euangeliu sun koinonus mu tes karitos pantos humas ontas. So that in fact is the end of the long sentence, despite the semicolon up here. This really is in some sense all one sentence. Paul likes these long sentences. So kathos, just as, originally this is kata plus hos, according as, so just as, esti dikaion, it is just emoi for me, phronein tuto, to think this on behalf of all of you. This is from phroneo, the infinitive. Dia to ekain me, now we get dia to plus the infinitive. And the problem here, of course, is that with the infinitive, accusative, infinitive construction, we're getting two accusatives, and one has to sort out exactly what is the subject of the infinitive here. And the word order would force the meaning something like, on account of me, to have you in the heart. So it's because I have you in my heart, rather than because of you having me in your heart. So it's the former. So on account of, because I have you in my heart has to be the meaning of this, because the accusative is closest to the infinitive here. In better classical Greek would avoid the ambiguity by putting the met probably inside the little clause here. But the fact that it's so near the infinitive means that that should be the forced meaning of it. It's te and kai, so both in my chains, and that's probably a reference to the fact that he is in prison at the time. And in the apologia, this is the defense. We get the word apology for this, not in the modern sense, but it's a technical law court meaning to give a defense, to give a reply to something. So in the defense and the bebiosis, the confirmation or establishment of the gospel. Bebiosis is a third declension feminine noun, if you're looking it up. It's got the sense of to make fast, and hence confirm or establish. So in the defense and establishment of the gospel, the euangeliou. Now we get here a participle with umas, you being, this is a participle from the verb to be, so all of you being, son koinonus, well, this is joint partners, understand, with me, so it's genitive with the sun here, you being joint partners with me of grace, or perhaps in grace, perhaps a defining genitive here. Koinos means common, so hence anything connected with that, and the word here means the sort of joint partners. Son koinonos is the nominative form. Martos gar muhathios hos epitho pantas humas en splanknois Jesu Christu Jesu kai tuto pros euchomai hina he agape humon etimalon kai malon perisue epi en epignose kai passe aistese es to dokimazden humas ta diaferonta hina eti elikrines kai apoproskopoi es hemeran Christu pepleromenoi kapoi dikai sunes ton dia Jesu Christu es doxan kai epainon theou. Again, another very long sentence. For Hotheos, God understand is, martus mu is my witness, that hos epi, this is from epipotheo, it's an epsilon contract verb. Pothos means desire, and this is just a compound verb, that I feel desire for you, feel desire for all of you. En splanknois. Now, splanknos, we normally translate it here affections or inward feelings. The word turns up in the Septuagint, and in classical Greek it's used to refer to the heart or the liver or the lungs as opposed to the intestines. That is, it's those parts of the body that were thought to contain the emotions, especially the heart. In the Septuagint, it's used to translate a Hebrew word for the bowels, and we see it used in Mark's Gospel. For example, Jesus felt compassion, and the Greek actually says he was moved en splanknois. So it's meant to be a metaphor here for the place where you feel deep emotions and compassion. So normally rendered here something like in the affections of the Messiah Jesus. Kai tuto pros euchomai, and this I pray. Now, looking at the structure here, we actually get some interesting patterns here. We get an AB structure. We get hina here for purpose, then we get ace top for purpose, then we get another hina here for purpose, so it's A, B, A, And then slight variation here, we get a perfect passive participle here, which finishes off the pattern. We get an AB pattern here. So, and on account of this I pray, in order that, or I pray that your love, the main verb is here, and it's subjunctive after hina. Perisuo is to abound or to increase, that it might increase, malon kai malon, more and more. En epignose, this is connected, of course, with ginosko, of knowing. Epignosis means full knowledge. It's another third declension feminine noun in is. So this is the dative, in full knowledge and in all. They say it's an interesting word. It's generally translated as discernment. It's connected with, or comes from, aisthanomai, to perceive. We get actually aesthetics from this in English. We get anesthetics, or anesthetics, I should say, in medicine, where you don't perceive anything because you've been knocked out. So this is aesthesis, which is again another one of these third declension feminine nouns, abstract, meaning discernment. It only appears here, interestingly, in the New Testament, but in the Septuagint it's quite frequent in Proverbs and used to render a word simply meaning knowledge. So in full knowledge and all perceptiveness or discernment, and we get aistop plus infinitive for purpose, so as, and the subject's here, so that you might, dokimazdo is to put to the test, to prove or to examine, so that you might put to the test ta diapheronta, literally the things which differ. In fact, our word differ is cognate with this, but via Latin. The sense that one must know what is one must do and what one must not do. Perhaps you could translate this, the various alternatives, so that you might, for you to discern the various alternatives, in order that ate you might be hali krines, another funny word here. It's only here and in 2 Peter 3:1 in the New Testament. The etymology of this is not really totally secure. It's been suggested it's connected with the word hele, despite the rough breathing, which means a rank or a troop in an army. It's generally translated in the New Testament as pure or unsullied or sincere. So in order that you might be pure and aproskopoi, this is another military term here, I think. Sorry, no, it's not. It's proskopto has the sense of to fall over. So there's two possible interpretations here, either in the passive sense of not stumbling and hence faultless or blameless, and it's so used in Acts 24, or in the active sense of not causing others to stumble, which you get in other Pauline works. It's a non-classical word, but it does appear in the Septuagint. So that you might be pure and blameless, perhaps if we take it that way, unto the day of the Messiah. Pepleromenoi, being filled with the fruit of righteousness, which is, so it's ton is agreeing back with this. It's not a relative, it's just repeating the article, but it's like a relative pronoun. Which is through Jesus the Messiah, for the glory and the praise of God. And there's a variant reading here as well. And this is an objective genitive here. So God is the object of the genitive here. So that you might, being filled with the fruit of righteousness, which is through Jesus the Messiah. It's something like resulting in the glory and praise towards God or of God. So with God as the object. and that's the first section of chapter 1 of Philippians.